Hey there, folks and fellows. Welcome to 522's Shift Happens. Our mission is to rid the world of cheesy videos, and this podcast is here to help you do exactly that and to unlock the power of video. At this point in sort of the online video space, there are a lot of formulas that sort of popped up, and formulas aren't bad inherently. They're good to rely on when you need to get a quick and dirty video done, but they're not always exciting, they're not always captivating, and they're not always very interesting for the audience. And what we're looking at here at 522 is how do we push the envelope further? How do we make things that are not just bog standard, even though bog standard works, but actually capture people's attention? And the mantra we've sort of decided on here of the season of Hallows Eve is fuck fear. And with me here to discuss fuck fear is 522's own wonderful returning guests, Chad Vossen and Kyle Finnegan, CCO and Creative Director, respectively. Welcome, gentlemen, to the show.
Thank you, Ahmed. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So both of you, I would say, are very, obviously you have a lot of experience in the field. And one thing that you guys are very good at, I would say, is making videos that don't feel absolutely boring to watch, which I think is sort of a rampant issue in a lot of the... I don't want to put any of our clients under the bus, but sometimes before us and sometimes after us, they'll put out videos that I would call not as engaging. Okay. And I think you guys are really good at taking what they do and actually creating something interesting with it. Especially, I think, Kyle, I don't know that I've ever seen you do the exact same kind of video, like style or feeling of video twice. Like, I feel like you really always change it up, like all the time.
I try not to, it keeps it interesting for us, so maybe it's selfish. But I don't want to do the same thing every day.
Yeah, fair enough. Chad, do you want to talk us through the concept of fuck fear, how you arrived there? Because that's a fun tagline, but I don't think you usually...
Yeah, I know it's just something that's come up over the years, where I think a lot of the issues, especially when it comes to cheesy video, at least I've found, is that people aren't willing to take risks or be bold or whatever.
Right.
And that's part of the problem with it is, people are just afraid, they're afraid to be bold, try something different, try something new. And that's really, a mantra that I've kind of developed, for myself or us or whatever, where it's really just, sometimes you just got to let it ride. Because if you want your video to stand out, you've got to just take a risk sometimes. You've got to be bold. You got to try something different. Mm-hmm. And really, that's sort of the idea behind that concept or that, platform or whatever.
Sure. Okay. What would you give me real quick, just for the audience's sake, sort of understanding what fuck fear, what letting it ride means. Do you have an example just on hand?
In terms of a specific video or?
Yeah, like a specific video or a client where you would say that we said fuck fear in the instance, in that instance.
Well, I don't think I ever said fuck fear to a client.
Yeah.
But, at least not to their face. But no. A lot of times we'll get somebody, for example, with the government video that we worked on recently, they came to us and said, hey, we have to do a pretty mundane topic, right? Sure. So it's a training video. There's 3 different videos. They're 30 minutes-ish each, all on just a process.
Right.
And it's for a government agency. And I think they were afraid of the fact that hey, we've done these before. It's not exactly the most engaging or captivating subject matter. Yeah. So what can we do to kind of spice things up or, capture people's attention? And we kind of just pitched this idea of, making it almost like a Wes Anderson style, kind of fun, campy, playing around with music and, certain style, shot styles and things like that, just to have fun with it a little bit. And it, luckily enough, the agency trusted us. Mm-hmm. We, obviously put together, a whole plan and package and said, hey, what if we do it this way, and they bought in. Mm-hmm. And I think it was really cool on their end. They were like, okay, let's do it. They didn't dial it back, which is obviously something we have to do. Right. But they were just like, yeah, let's let it ride, and they just trusted us.
Yeah, that was a weird one. The amount that they trusted us, I think, was surprising to me.
Yeah,
a little bit.
Yeah,
because I was the editor for that project for context, and When I submitted that and we had like put that in, I was like, well, I'm gonna have to get rid of 90% of this one. I was like, I really enjoyed it. I liked what I did, but I was like, I'm gonna have to get rid of 90% of this. And then I remember we got it back and they were like, no notes. And I was like, that can't be right.
Yeah, no.
Isn't that one too? I remember you guys talking about after you went through some notes, they were like, I'm kind of bopping my head along to this. And you're like,
Yep.
no, it's supposed to be fun. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know one of the clients was saying like her husband walked by her room when she was watching it and was like, bopping along to it. And we're like, all right. I think that's when she knew like this works. Like her husband had no idea of what she was up to, what she was watching, but then like stopped and was like, hey, what's that? And that to me is, almost the ultimate compliment.
Yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, that's definitely a great example of a project where we said, let's just do something crazy.
Yeah.
Kyle,
I was going to say, I do want to be clear. I don't want to make it seem like it was Jordan. It was Jordan's. Jordan's project. Jordan was the creative director.
Jordan Howell's creative director here at 522. He was the sort of lead on that project with your assistance, of course.
Yes.
And that turned out, it turned out great.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And Kyle, you've got a lot. I'm sure you've got like an example or two. Maybe you were thinking.
Yeah. Well, the fuck fear mentality has been something that's been in the back of my brain too. To borrow a baseball metaphor, I guess, too, I like to think of that you could strike out on a small swing or big swing, but on a small swing, you're not going to hit a home run. So you do have to take those big swings if you want to knock it out of the park. Go Yankees.
I'll cut that out.
So I think one of the projects that stands out in my mind is a client that we had, Myriad 360, who we've had a partnership with for a couple of years at this point. The first project we worked on for them, they came to us hoping that we could just do a tour video of their facility, almost like a real estate video where if you were wanting to tour an apartment but you couldn't be there, you would walk through and see all the different facilities. But it was really an opportunity to kind of like show off to their clients too. So we really wanted to make something that looked cinematic in their warehouse, as sort of almost like a movie trailer for what they do in that facility, which is groundbreaking, sets them apart from the rest of their competition. So we were able to go into their facility and using a drone and macro lenses, probe lenses, just getting some like really cinematic movement. I mean, we made this warehouse, which is full of crates, look badass. And they were blown away when they saw that. I think it really affirmed their identity as a company, as like a groundbreaking, organization. Which is great to see when you can kind of reflect back at your client what they see in themselves.
No, for sure, yeah. And that, again, those were great shots and great video. That turned out beautifully, and it's a great example, I think. And they came back because they were like, that fucking turned out great, and they loved it. So, big swing, knocked it out of the park. As your analogy sort of goes. Along those lines, it's sort of continuing on the sort of fuck fear mentality. I want to talk about. So, of course, we have clients that I think are probably a little, those clients were willing to work with us, I think. They were willing to play ball. I think we sometimes have a lot of clients that are not as willing to sort of do something a little crazy. I won't point out the organization, but I remember recently we had a sort of pitch meeting for a client in which we were pitching like something that might have been more animation-y based and sort of something like along those lines. And it was going to be, a little bit more of collage, sort of interesting kind of vibe. And the client just wasn't for it. They didn't. They felt like it was too weird and like unusual. They didn't like hearing the word animation even in the first place. And so I think we sometimes face that a lot. Is like clients sort of seeing that we've got an idea that I think is maybe interesting or a little out there, and then they kind of feel like it's too out there, it's too much, and so they want to rein it back in and do something simple. And then we ended up doing what I think is a little bit of sort of a more bog standard, not like still doing a little bit more. But like it ended up being a little bit more of our standard sort of affair instead of that more interesting idea. So in that vein, how do you guys sort of guide clients or sort of help clients understand what it means to sort of take those big swings and like go for huge ideas that pay off?
I think one of the things that really helps to be able to, I don't want to say sell an idea because we're coming up with stuff that ultimately works. But I think knowing that what your audience wants, what our clients and audience wants, is really important. Because if you are just trying to appeal to this as many people as you can, you're really working on stuff that's like lowest common denominator. That will try to appeal to everything. But generally, the videos that we're working on are trying to reach specific people. And knowing what they want and being able to tailor to them, I think makes something that feels a little more custom, a little more personal, a little more human, instead of just trying to appeal to everyone. Because we know that usually means something bland.
Right, yeah.
When you try to appeal to everyone, you appeal to no one.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think that's also one of the things you do really well is making clients feel comfortable with the idea, where it's like, hey, we've got something, it's a lot of it just goes into how you pitch it, how you explain it, and then because they have to feel comfortable and confident that you can deliver. Yeah. And I think that's one of the things that Kyle in particular does really well.
Right.
Like, you know, in talking with Myriad, sure, that was a different concept, but like, what was that like in terms of like getting their buy-in?
Yeah, they were willing to trust us, I think, because they had seen all the work that we've done over the years. So that helps greatly. But also, we knew what they wanted to accomplish, which was to show their facility.
Right.
Great. The bar was I don't want to say low, but we had
the objective.
Yeah, the objective was simple.
The objective was simple, and once we knew that we could do that pretty easily, we were kind of able to up the stakes a little bit and say, okay, we can show off the facility. Yeah. But we can make you look really cool as an organization too. And once you're adding that like additional layer, that additional objective, I feel like they buy into that pretty easily.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I think it all goes down to that trust, you know, and you know, as creatives or creative directors in this case, if it's getting folks to just buy into your vision and getting them to understand it. And I think sometimes it's not easy too, especially when you're coming up with something custom that hasn't really been done before, and it's like a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and we're taking this and that. And it can be challenging too to get folks to buy into what it is that what you see in your head, and you know, having them kind of like roll the dice with you. That can be challenging, but you know, like Kyle said, it's sort of your past track record and how you frame and position you know, whatever the idea is goes a long way.
Yeah, and I think it's a good test for us too, because you could say, hey, I want to do this video where we blow up a building, and your client will say, okay, why?
Yeah.
And it's not really enough to say, well, because that would be cool.
It would be awesome. It would be super rad. It should be enough, but it isn't.
Right. You have to be able to see it through their eyes a little bit and say, like, what does this choice that I'm making, what does that help them do? What does that accomplish for their goal? And it's a good check to make sure that you're doing something that fits for them and not just something that seems cool to you.
Well, I think that's something too, where it's like, you know, I think one of the OG reasons why I got into this entire racket to begin with was like, okay, I could make a training video on X, I could do a recruitment video on X, like, do I want to watch it? You know, is this something I would find entertaining? Or probably more importantly, you know, in the context of working with clients, is like, hey, somebody's got to watch this thing. Your end, you know, user, viewer, whatever it is, are they going to be intrigued? Like, you're trying to change their perspective, their attitude, their vision. You're trying to get them to apply, to write a check, to, you know, whatever it is, take that action. And they're not going to do it if you're just sort of like presenting facts. Right. So it's being able to package everything in a compelling or interesting way to get that person who's on the other end to take that action. And I think that's where a lot of clients over the years, like, it's hard. You got to let go. Yeah. And I think that's, you know, one of those things that can be a little tricky because they're so involved in their own work, their own project, their own stuff, where they kind of, it's easy to lose sight of, you know, who the end person is. Right.
Yeah.
And the challenges that they face.
For sure. I think it does. It comes down to what I think we boil down to a lot on this podcast, which is like trusting the creatives in a lot of cases really is like part of that sort of thing. Trusting that like we're not out to make a bad video. that our goal is not to waste our clients' money, but to try and create like something interesting and like valuable, essentially.
Yeah.
So and I'll, if I'm like boiling it down. So fuck fear is slogan of the month, and kind of our slogan in general, but in many ways. What does fuck fear mean to both of you? Like in your minds, like you're chanting the mantra fuck fear. What does that mean to you? How do you take that into sort of client work and the jobs that we do?
Yeah, I'll tie it back to having this long experience that we've had. You have a bunch of tricks in your bag now. You've made a lot of successful videos, and you could show up somewhere, play the hits, and probably come out with a halfway decent video. But is that really how you want to spend your time as a creative?
No.
I don't think so. I want to keep thinking of new ways to push myself and to push the creative forward. Because, I mean, the video trends change every year, every decade.
Every minute.
Every minute. So if you keep doing the same thing, you're really just falling behind.
Right.
So that's the fear that I'm always fighting against is, that we are going to fall
Fear of
behind.
lagging.
Yeah, so just trying to stay in front of the 8 ball.
Yeah.
Behind.
All right. Okay. On.
In.
In.
I do not know the phrase that you're.
Behind. He's
What are we doing with
flopping.
this 8 ball?
He's flopping behind the 8 ball.
We're flopping.
He wants to get in front of it.
Okay.
Yeah. But I don't know if that actually works.
I don't either.
Anyway, I just don't want to. I don't want to be swept away by a trend that we didn't keep up with.
Yeah.
Because we were trying to stay in it. I think if you're trying to think of new ways to do things, not riding the trends, you're not falling behind them. You're trying to think of new things.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Chad.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's hard too because it's a double-edged sword. We get a lot of clients who are like, "Have you done exactly this before?" And my answer is always no. Like we create custom videos, so no. And even like, sure, we've done 100 sort of medical videos or healthcare videos, but whatever that person or that client's particular need at that given moment for this particular audience to achieve this particular thing, it's all new. And that's again what I love about it. And I think that's one of the hardest things to do is explain to folks like, no, we haven't done exactly this before, but trust us, we'll do it. And I think that's one of the harder things about attracting new clients, for example, where if they want, I want to know that you've done exactly this for exactly this particular industry with exactly this particular goal, like, sure, like it's, can we connect the dots where it's, okay, we've done this and that and this, trust us, and that can be hard. But I think, in working with AIA, I remember one time, we had worked with them for a number of years and where we had that existing relationship.
Yeah.
And Erin, I think, when we were working on a Brudat anniversary video, was just like, just make us look cool. Like, just, that's all, that was her only direction. She was like, just make us look cool. Like, I don't care what you do. Just like, this is a very complex topic. It's a complex, thing that we were trying to achieve.
Yeah.
But we had established that trust because we'd done a number of projects with her.
Absolutely.
And that to me is the coolest thing. When we get that opportunity to just, to take that risk.
Absolutely. Hell yeah.
In those conversations that you're having with people where they're asking, have you done this exact thing before? Like, doesn't that video that they're asking about already exist?
Yeah. You might as well seek out the person who made it at that point.
I'm just.
Yeah.
Is someone
I don't
coming
know.
and saying, "Hey, make
this.
this video that's already made"?
Yeah. We want to
In so many words.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
it's, we get that a lot, I think with the government too.
Yeah.
Where it's, again, they're, for lack of a better term, they have that like decision paralysis and it's more risk for them to do something different.
Yeah.
It's more personal risk, their job security or whatever.
Yeah.
But, that's kind of the whole idea behind Fuck Fears. Like, look, great. You can,
make it work.
do what everybody else has done 1,000 times before.
Yeah.
Good luck moving the needle.
For sure.
'Cause
I
you
mean,
won't.
there are definitely production companies out there that do the same thing and they
Yeah.
do it well, but we're not one of those. We don't.
Yeah.
So Fuck Fear is also about innovation. And so I'd say that, in that vein of like pushing the needle and trying to do new stuff, you guys are always looking at new trends. You guys are probably the most on top of things out of everybody in the company. And I'd love to know what kind of things you're looking at right now that you're very excited about, that maybe you want to try, that you haven't got an opportunity to yet, but like you want to make it work.
Yeah. I'm constantly looking for like new ads, new documentaries, new videos to see what other folks are up to. I think in the past 5 years or so, cameras and lenses have changed where we're able to put people in like perspectives that they've never been able to see before. I saw a great ad the other day about the end of Netflix's DVDs, and just the places they were able to put cameras or able to make it seem like where the camera was, whether you're in an envelope or in a DVD tray. I think like filmmaking and what we do is all about perspective and putting people in new points of view. So I'm really excited about where we can head in those areas. I mean, 5 years ago, it was probably everyone was really excited about drones. I think people are really excited about like very small but high quality cinema cameras now, and really wide lenses or really macro lenses. And yeah, I'm excited about all those new perspectives we can take on.
Chad?
I think I always like trying something, that I've seen somewhere. I mean, seen in one sort of industry and trying it in another, or seeing like a different style and applying it here. And I think, not to echo what Kyle said, but just the like, especially since, COVID and just like how like everything has just changed. And I think right before COVID, we were getting into those like LED lights, and like literally a lighting director can sit there on his or her phone and dial up or down dimmers, change colors, and like literally not move.
Yeah.
And be staring right at the monitor and change all those things. Like that wasn't possible, a couple years ago.
Right.
And I think just that opportunity to do stuff like that, where you're able to accomplish a lot more with less.
Yeah.
And I think, I think like when you shared that video, I counted, I was like, oh my God, they had 68 shots in a 60-second video. That's insane.
Yeah.
And, I'm curious to know how long that shoot was, like how many days.
Seriously.
Like,
Yeah.
but,
68 days.
Yeah, 60, yeah. But I mean, everyone was on point because, the ability of the camera and the color correction that you could do. Like, I mean, they obviously a lot perspective and sort of techniques, and they had a shot maybe under the couch, and but they can color correct and make it nice. But that whole video was just saturated and bright and just warm and nostalgic, and it was really. It was just a really great video.
Absolutely.
And just all the tools that we now have at our disposal to be able to do that. And now I'm going to guess it was probably just a couple days shoot.
Yeah.
On a simple stage where they were able to kind of just swap things in out fairly quickly.
Going off of that, inspirations are a huge part of how we get things done. A lot of our videos are, we were like, oh, I liked this idea, or this was very inspired by this. The video we were talking about at the beginning of the podcast that was like a Wes Anderson style. Obviously, we were inspired by that sort of stylistic sort of choices, and we sort of aired on that side of things. And I'm wondering where you guys look for inspiration. Like, where do you guys do when you're like trying to figure out like some new ideas and inspirations? Like, where do you go? Where do you search?
Everywhere. Like just literally everywhere. It could be, a character, a person that you meet is just like, oh, that person's got a quirky personality or whatever. I think for me, one of the things that I do is if I'm watching a pre-roll ad or if I'm watching an ad on TV, like I'll instantly go to iSpot, like look it up, take a note of it, and then capture it probably on Clipix or whatever. Yeah. So I've just got like this long, crazy list of all these different videos that I go to, and then anytime there's like a new project, I just have, because you never know, like you never know when inspiration, like, we were working on something with UMD, and they wanted this fun, edgy, like fast-paced, intro that kind of flashes all over the place. And I saw something, I think it was for like API, the American Petroleum Institute, on like a commercial in a show I was watching, and I just happened to kind of connect the two, and I was like, oh, that's probably what UMD is talking about. Yeah, well, and I shared that with Jordan and with Kara, and they're like, oh yeah, no, and Megan, and they were like, oh yeah, this makes sense. I mean, there's just it's just keeping your eye open all the time.
You never know where it's going to come from. I've had days where it's like, all right, today I need to have an idea. And then you get to 4 o'clock and you're like, I have no idea. And then you just see something, you're like, wait, what about that?
Yeah.
It takes like all day to think about it, but just like that one spark can really set you off. So yeah, I think you definitely have to be open to getting inspiration from anywhere. I think similar to what Chad was talking about, like when you're looking at one industry and thinking about, oh, how can I apply this to a totally different one? Whenever we're working on like, say, a documentary project, I think about like, oh, what fiction film is this like, and how can I like apply that?
Right.
Because I think we're lucky that people are just like so exposed to like different videos and movies out there that we all have great reference points in all different parts of film, video, music videos, where we can like make these references. I worked on something with Ray, our director, a couple years ago, where we were doing a short documentary about car hackers. We're like, they kind of put together this team. It's a little bit like Ocean's 11. So like maybe we could take this documentary about them and make it like a little bit like Ocean's 11 like heist movie. And it worked out to be like the perfect point of reference for that. And came out great because it's like we were looking somewhere different than documentaries for inspiration.
Yeah.
So that helped.
I think like I'm kicking it a little old school, but I remember I had seen this, I don't even know what it was for, but it was like this thing for Toyota, and they were talking about like the Camry or something like that. Sure. And they had this like host and coming on, and it was just this asinine kind of character host, like presenting all these different scenarios and like, oh my gosh, like what are you gonna do in this situation, whatever. And then we happened to have this one project where they were talking about, okay, we need to teach analysts about cognitive biases. And you're like, okay, like, you know, it's a very, very dense, complex subject, you know, cognitive biases to basically, you know, newer folks. So it's basically, how do you make people look at information with a fresh and new perspective? And that's really boiling it down.
Yeah.
But we just applied that idea from the Toyota spot that we had seen into this, where, you know, we had this quirky host and he's sort of presenting the information about cognitive bias, and, you know, it was just like we had all these little scenarios and he's pausing the video and reflecting on it, like just like, you know, the Toyota thing. So we kind of borrowed the framework from that. And it worked really well. And I remember we went up against, I think there were a couple video games. We were the control in this group, you know, not to give up too much, but we went up against some video games and we placed second out of like 6 different like tests of how we can do analysts. Are they aware of their cognitive biases? How are they reacting to them? All that kind of stuff. And that was just like a fun, totally unexpected twist, you know, on how we approach that. And I think, I don't know how we convinced our client. You know, we were just like, what if we try this? And they were like, that sounds cool, like, go for it. And we're like, okay, like, let's do it. And it worked really well. We had actors and, you know, it was just a fun instance of just, again, you just never know when you see something that inspires you or you like, where that sort of opportunity may come up.
Yeah.
You know, I'm still waiting on that Dodge Dart execution.
Yes.
And that's been about 10 years.
Soon.
Coming soon, hopefully.
Yeah, right.
Something nice about our process too is it is, at least in post-production, an iterative process where we are reviewing with our clients. So I don't want to say that you can fix everything in post, but I feel like you at least get one opportunity to miss and come back.
you can shift vaguely in like a different direction depending on, you know, how hard you've sort of leaned in something.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I was actually thinking about that for some reason this morning with HHS.
Yeah.
Or with our government client, if we're not allowed to say that.
I don't know.
But with that project, you know, that we were talking about where we did the Wes Anderson style, we had the opportunity to dial it back, you know, where you were saying, oh, I'm going to have to probably change 90% of this. We would have changed the music. We would have changed, maybe some of the shots and the sound effects and the how we handled some of the B-roll. But we had that opportunity to sort of course correct, if you will.
Right.
Luckily, we didn't have to.
Yeah, true. Setting yourself up for the opportunity to course correct is definitely smart, I think. Yeah. So, in terms of course, we're talking about like how we're pushing the needle and things like that. So, let's talk about what clients can do, what we can do to set videos apart. Exactly. Like, what do you guys do to set videos apart? Just some basic ideas, not even like specific, like unique examples, just like, oh, this is what I do to make this a little bit different from a usual video of this style.
I think the easiest thing to do is, it's kind of a layup. It's story, right? You want to find an interesting and compelling story, something that the viewer, and this is where it can get creative and fun, where it's like you can take a very sort of non-traditional or just something that may feel bland, and it's like, okay, how am I going to connect with the viewer? Where it's like, take a CISO, a Chief Information Security Officer, and what keeps them up at night, and like thinking about those types of things. So it's really developing a compelling and interesting story, something that's going to resonate with the viewer. What makes a story interesting is challenge, right? What are they trying to overcome? And that kind of thing. So it's finding unique ways and windows into whatever the product or the organization or whatever it is that you're trying to describe. How does it relate to that end viewer, and what makes it interesting to them?
Yeah, I think what Chad said is spot on, is that you really do want to resonate with someone at a personal level, and kind of come at it from their perspective. And I think there's a visual way to do that too. An example from TV that I always think about is Breaking Bad. Breaking Bad was always putting the camera in a place that like you could never really be, but it felt like you were there. Like you might be at the bottom of a drawer, or you might be way off in the distance watching someone. And these are like really unique perspectives for the story that they were telling, I thought. Yeah. Which at times was like intense, emotional, and like really was focused on the characters, but just where you put the audience is where you put the camera. And thinking about that constantly, I think can always give you like a fresh perspective. When I'm talking to you, I'm always going to look at you like this. But what if I was on the floor?
That's interesting.
You could always put the camera somewhere different. I think it helps.
Next podcast, we'll just toss the camera up in the ceiling, get a really unique sort of idea.
I think, we could probably clamp it.
Honestly, we probably could. Yeah. There's all those sort of wires.
Get a ladder. Is our insurance up to date?
Sure.
Yeah.
There are other ways to, to be bold and stick out. I think there's compelling characters, that where I think a lot of times we'll run into organizations, and this is always true with like recruitment or mission videos, where it's a top-down approach. We want to hear from the hiring manager and their boss and the boss's boss, but you never were like, oftentimes they're afraid to like, hey, you're recruiting for this entry-level position. Can I talk to an entry-level position person and what makes this job so great and wonderful? It's that, it's perspective from a different point of view. It's that, what is that angle? What is that window into the story you're trying to tell? Yeah. And I've always struggled when it's like, you're recruiting for this entry-level position. You need a lot of them. Can we talk to that person? Yeah. The people doing the day-to-day, where you actually get to see what it is that they do. Find somebody that actually enjoys what they do. Yeah. And, go from there. Where it's just a weird sort of top-down approach when you just have C-suite people talking about how wonderful an organization is. And, sometimes those are C-suite people that have only been there 8 months, and they don't exactly know, what it's like to come up through the trenches. Yeah. Or hey, let me talk to somebody who used to do that entry-level position. They're going to have a unique perspective, with X amount of years of experience or whatever.
For sure. Yeah. I'd say in my sort of mindset, I spend a lot of time in the editing room. That's usually how I say. So any innovation, any sort of things that I'm trying to pull off is usually there. And I feel like the ways that I always try to sort of create a more unique video is trying to push the envelope on, particularly I like to try and push the envelope on music choices. I feel like, because I feel like when it comes to there's a certain sound that is corporate in music, and like you can hear it. Like if someone played like a song for a corporate video, you'd be able to pick it out like from a list of like 100. Like it would be super easy. And so I'm always trying to find a way to play to the music, and like I like editing to music. I think it makes a more engaging video, but I like choosing music that's very different. That's why I liked working for the government client, because I could choose like jazzy little numbers, a little like weird sort of fun like Germany like folk song stuff. It was like, that was weird. And like they let me do that, and that was fun, and sort of pushing the envelope in like those kinds of ways in the editing room, going for unique shots. A recent client, WGL, I pulled from Motion Array, and I pulled a bunch of like an interesting effect, and I sort of played around with that, and that was really fun, and sort of pushing the envelope and with special effects and stuff like that, and just doing something weird like that is how I find make something a little bit more interesting, make it a little more engaging than just interview B-roll.
I mean, and that's the thing. There's so many technical aspects to making something interesting. Sound design. The music, I'm so glad you touched on that, because that is so important to just making a video just feel instantly different, or lack of music. Maybe you're opening on just like a cold open on, something without music is interesting too. Like the video you shared this morning. I don't think there was a music track, or at least 40 seconds into it. I don't think there's a music track into it. But music, color correction is another one, that's super important. And animation, like just working on the CDC project and seeing what Ray can just conjure is just so much. It's so cool. And it just, we're there and we're on set and we're framing the shot, and we're like, hey, this looks nice, this is good. I mean, these people have some really important and interesting things to say. And then Ray just like sprinkles his pixie dust on it, and you're like, "Damn, this thing pops! Like this thing looks dope now." And I love that shit.
Yeah, wizard.
That's what he is.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think post magic is definitely real. I hate saying you could fix it in post, but like you can really work magic if you know what you're doing in there, and like take something that would otherwise be bog standard and then just crank it up a little bit. And maybe it's not a 10, but it's at least an 8. And that's and if we shot it really well and did something really interesting like Myriad 360, it could be an 11. So
definitely,
it's all about that.
Well, I mean, like, look, if you're saying rid the world of cheesy video, you're talking, on a scale of 1 to 10, you're talking like a 3 or a 4. And if 5 is that average, and that who wants to do 5? Like, what's the point? We're aiming for like 8, 9, 10. Always.
The biggest dangers are when a project comes in and someone goes, "That's pretty straightforward." No. Let's take a turn in the righter direction.
That's true.
Bolder than straightforward.
Exactly. I do think it's, and this is not to throw anyone who work with us, but it is funny when we're like, "Oh, this is gonna be a very straightforward video." It's like, but it doesn't have to be. It doesn't it doesn't have to be straightforward. It could be something a little bit more. Like that's what I'm always looking for.
Hey, bottom line, do you want people to pay attention to this thing? Okay, cool.
So it was great having both of you here on the podcast. You guys have always got really good perspectives, and you're very eloquent. Do you guys have any last things you want to say about nope? Do you have anything less that you want to say about the slogan "Fuck Fear"?
Happy Halloween.
Yeah, all right. I'll take that.
I'll go with LGFM. Let's LFGM. Damn it, I fucked it up. I did.
I knew what you meant.
Well, Kyle threw his Yankee plug in there, so I had to throw my Met plug in that I completely botched.
Oh, is that what that was? Because I did not.
I did Let's Go Fucking Mets instead of Let's Fucking Go Mets. LFGM.
It still makes sense grammatically.
Yeah.
Let's go fucking Mets.
Let's go fucking Mets.
I think it's just fucking Mets.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us here on 522's Shift Happens. We have a blog out talking all about innovating in the video space. About what was it about, Chad?
What?
The blog.
Being bold, right?
Being
bold.
Yes. We have a blog on the 522's website about being bold and about fuck fear. Go ahead and check that out. That'll be linked in the description. Go ahead and check out our social medias. And thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you next time.